Hey guys, welcome. Today I'm with my friend and person that I've done tons of deals with, Eric Stam from
Hi,
Cross
everyone.
Country Mortgage. How's it going, Eric?
Good. How you doing?
Good, good. So today we're going to talk about Local Law 11 in New York City and what that is and why it is creating all kinds of problems for lending and killing deals right now. A lot of people are not talking about this, but it's like a huge deal for lenders in New York City if you're trying to buy a condo or a co-op, right?
Correct. Correct.
And also just you moved recently from a big bank to Cross Country Mortgage. Um, Maybe you can tell us about why you did that and how it relates to what we're talking about with this local law 11 lending issues in New York City right now.
Sure. Absolutely. So, hi, everyone. Eric Sam with Cross Country Mortgage. I recently came over in January from Bank of America. I left Bank of America with the main reason being the local law 11 issues. Basically, any building in the five boroughs that currently has work being done to the facade or to the buildings, Bank of America is no longer lending in those buildings. So I made a move to a lender, a correspondent lender who will lend in these buildings. Now to get into what Local Law 11 and how it affects financing, I am going to share my screen and show you exactly. Whoa, hold on.
So while you're doing that, I would say that local law 11 is when you see scaffolding up, on buildings where people are doing repointing work on the facades. That's typically local law 11 work. Local law 11 requires that condos and co-ops, any buildings that are over, is it 6 stories high? It requires an inspection every 5 years, and any work that needs to be done to the facades to be done every 5 years. And it's really a safety thing so that pieces of buildings don't fall off and like hurt people when they.
Correct. Correct. All right. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
All right, so as you mentioned, it's buildings greater than 6 stories. By law, the buildings have to be inspected every 5 years. The inspections are called critical exams. They're performed by a New York State licensed professional engineer or registered architect, and the reports are filed on the DOB Now website. CT, after the Zoom, I'll send you a link to the DOB website along with instructions on how to access it. So realtors can go and see for themselves how the reports came back. Now, after the inspector does their report, the buildings are classified in 3 categories. There's safe, unsafe, and SWARMP. So safe is a condition of a building wall or appurtenance not requiring repair or maintenance, and in which case it's full steam ahead. And then there's SWARMP, safe with a
Full steam ahead meaning all the banks will lend on it.
100%, 100%. SWARMP is the new classification. It's safe with a repair maintenance program. So it's a condition of a building wall or appurtenance that is safe at the time of inspection, but requires repair or maintenance in order to prevent its deterioration into an unsafe condition during a 5-year period. So Bank of America and other big lenders up until September of last year were lending in all of these SWARMP designated buildings. But in September, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the two biggest buyers and sellers of mortgages in the country who buy and sell the loans from all the big banks, stopped buying these loans. And that's when the big banks stopped financing in a lot of these buildings.
Which is a huge deal, right? Because as we were talking about, like the bigger lenders, Bank of America, Wells, like Chase, they
Chase,
rely on
Citibank,
the ability to package those loans and then sell them to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. And
100%,
that
100%.
messes up their business model.
Exactly. And then the last classification is unsafe, a condition of a building, wall, or appurtenance that is hazardous to persons or property and requires repair within 1 year of completion inspection. So if a building is unsafe, it'll be classified as unsafe, and then the inspector will come back in a year to make sure those the critical repairs have been made. Now, just because a building is classified does not necessarily mean that it's unsafe. because in a SWARMP designated building where it's safe, but it needs the repair maintenance, the inspector gives a date that the work has to be done by. If the work is not completed by the date, then the classification will automatically turn to unsafe. But it could be that the work is almost done, or the work is done, but it hasn't been registered with the DOB yet. And in those cases, it doesn't mean that the building is unsafe. But banks like Bank of America, if they go to the website and they see that it's SWARMP or unsafe, it's a hard no. They don't care. Where we're going to look at the information of the building, and we will get information from the managing agent letting us know exactly the status of where they are with the repairs. And accordingly, we will do those kind of loans.
So,
All right.
so just
Go
to
ahead.
clarify, you will lend on SWARMP designations. Can you also lend on certain unsafe designated buildings as well?
Yes, great question. So cross country, we have our own internal product that will likely finance condos and co-ops that do not meet the new agency guidelines, meaning that they are SWARMP or they could even be unsafe. We have additional investors that do not require the review of inspection reports, and we will do those loans. It's an alternative product that we have. So even an unsafe building, we will have unless it's something like really, really bad, we will have options for those buildings.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
that flexibility is so important in New York City because there's all kinds of situations that may be particular to New York City and not really applicable in the suburbs, for example, right?
correct.
Yeah.
And also, like as an FYI, like if buildings, part of the guidelines are if the buildings have been inspected in the last 3 years, we want to see what the report is. So on the questionnaires, there is a question asking, has the building been inspected in the last 3 years? If the building hasn't, and the answer is no on those questionnaires, we won't dig any deeper. We're not going to ask for the report. We're not going to go to the DOB website. It's pretty much full steam ahead. It's their guidelines. It's the way they read. So I tell our agents, if they're able to find out when the inspection was done, technically, even if it was an unsafe rendering on the inspection and it was older than 3 years, we're not going to dig deeper unless there's also a question on the questionnaire that's going to ask, has there been any violations, or are there any structural integrity issues? If they answer yes to that, then of course we'd have to look deeper. But in certain cases, it could be a SWARMP filing and it's not considered, structural integrity. It could be, there's some cracks in some of the mortar by the bricks, but it's nothing structural. If that's older than 3 years, then we'll still do the financing. Basically, 95 to 98% of the time, we're going to be able to do financing one way or the other, whether it's a Fannie Mac best market interest rate product, or it might be an alternative product where we're going to put it into where it's going to be a product geared towards that. Now, the interest rate might be a little bit higher for those products where a building is unsafe. We call that, or we treat that as a bridge loan, so to speak, where we know the work's going to get done, right? We know it might take a year, 2 years, maybe 2.5 years for that work to get done. So for right now, we'll be able to get a loan for that product, but the rate might be a little bit higher. But once the work is done, we could refinance the buyer into a traditional Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac product in which they'll get the better rate, and you don't have to worry about the classification of the building anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the things that you're pointing out too is, so from my side of things as a real estate agent, it's super important to understand this, and it's very important to also vet the lenders for the buyers of your building if you're in a building that is SWARMP or unsafe. And that's something that we have to learn, that we have to know to do as real estate agents, how to go to the DOB Now website, scroll down to the right place, and check the designation. Because if you are in SWARMP or unsafe and you've got to deal with a buyer that is using a big bank that sells to Fannie or Freddie as their lender, that could kill the deal. And so you need to be able to get ahead of that as a listing agent. And certainly as a buyer's agent too, you've got to know that, oh, well, wait a second, like I've got to make sure that my client's lender is actually flexible enough to put an offer in on and close on, this building that is in SWARMP designation, which is a large percentage of buildings, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, I've
Well,
done the numbers. There's 7,000 buildings in the 5 boroughs. About 4,000 to 4,200 are co-ops. Co-ops are traditionally 80 to 100 years old. So if inspections are being done every 5 years, you better believe those buildings, those 4,000 buildings, there's a good percentage of those buildings that need work or in their middle of doing work right now.
Mhm.
And can you see the website right now,
Yeah.
CT?
Yep.
All right, so this is the website. I'm gonna fly through it real quick to show you how to look it up. I have a handout that I'll send over to you so you can forward it to any agents that are interested in seeing. But to your point, it's great to have the information for both your buyers as well as sellers. So if you're going after a listing and you do your homework and you know what the classification is for the building, and you go in there and say, hey, look, your building is unsafe, we might have to do different things to get your apartment ready to sell. You're going in armed with knowledge and information that it could help you win a listing, right?
Yeah.
All right, so you click address, and I'm going to do this real quick because I'll send you the handout. But this is a building that I have when I was at Bank of America that got declined because it had work being done to it.
Right. So perfect example of what we're talking about.
Exactly. So you go to the drop down. Here's the facades of the safety compliance filings, and you're going to what's called the FISP, the report. FISP stands for Facade Inspection Safety Program. And you go to the report, and then this report, it's long and it's daunting, but it basically goes over all the work that needs to be done in order for the building to be called safe. So you can see here, I'm highlighting, see it says SWARMP completion date, November 30th, 2023. Here's the recommendations of the repairs or maintenance, and this goes over all of the items that needs to be done. This had to get done by last November, so technically this would turn unsafe. It's just a question of an inspector gets back out there. And not only are you able to see what the report says needs to be done, but you're also able to go and take a look at the pictures. So every inspector, when they do their inspection report, they're also required to take pictures of the work that needs to be done. So here's an example of
Gotcha.
work that needs to be done. So if you circle here, this would be, if you see, there's like a crack in the slate,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So this would be an item that's SWARMP that needs to be get done. And this is a simple thing that Bank of America is saying, we're not lending in this building anymore. You take a look at this. That's ridiculous, right? I mean, the building's not going to fall.
It's not like that. It's like falling off anytime soon.
Exactly. We're not talking about structural integrity here.
So could you go back to the DOB Now page, because I think that a lot of the details, while it's great that we're able to look into the details, actually close that window too.
Yep.
And I think for the more lay people, for the real estate agents in the world, and for the buyers and sellers, especially the sellers, just looking there, right, at the most recent report that is 2021, it's listed as SWARMP.
Yep.
Right. And that's kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the information that me as a real estate agent needs to be able to know, and sellers need to know, because if that is your designation, then there's a bunch of lenders that could have problems lending on your building, and you could get into contract. And if you're not aware of it, you could get all the way into diligence for the lender in your and until you find out that, oh, sorry, this lender doesn't lend on the building. Is that correct?
Correct. 100% correct. And with cross country, we've got over 100 different investors and banks that we work with. So if it doesn't work with one, if it doesn't work with Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, we're able to pivot it and bring it to a lender that will, because we have different lenders and investors with different appetites for risk. And like I said, 98% of the time, we're going to be able to get the deal done.
Yeah, this is a huge deal, and like people are not talking about it enough. We've been seeing some seminars educating real estate agents on it, but you're just not people are not talking about this in New York City very much. So I think this is
100%.
super helpful and super important to know.
You
And
got
it's
it.
super important to also know that there are lenders out there like you who actually not only know all this stuff, but can also provide lending solutions for people who want to buy in SWARMP buildings, which is some, I don't know, 10, 20%, maybe 30% of buildings that are out there. I don't even know, but it's definitely a significant percentage of buildings. If you just go
Absolutely. Yeah,
DOB.
when I was leaving Bank of America, I looked at my when this happened, right? I had to figure out where I was going with this, and I looked at my pipeline from the whole year, and I closed about 25 to 30 co-ops and condos. So I went back to see how many were designated as SWARMP, and there was 7 to 8 out of those 25 to 30. I mean, that's like a third of my business.
Yeah.
And
So
when I
there you
looked at
go.
those numbers, I was like, I got to get out of here.
30%. That's an awesome anecdote. We are actually running out of Zoom time here. So this is awesome to know. Thank you so much.
My
And,
pleasure.
and I encourage people to ask you questions. You're great. I love working with you on this stuff.
Thank
And
you,
that's
CT.
it.
You as well.
Yeah. All right. We'll
All
we'll
right.
talk again.
You got it. Bye, guys.